this computer. All right, so today's presentation is by Kozo Mayumi. Can't tell you how happy I am about this. My good friend and my mentor, my great mentor, and I'm really ecstatic. So thank you, Kozo. Kozo graduated from the Graduate School of Engineering at the Department of Applied Math and Physics of Kyoto University. And he studied under Professor Nicholas Georgescu-Rojan at the University of, or at Vanderbilt University. And since then, Kozo's been one of the leading academics in energy analysis and ecological economics, and continues great work to today. He's now at the Kyoto College of Graduate Studies for Informatics. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kozo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to talk in this seminar. Do you hear me? All of you, just four, including myself. Okay, my talk today is based on the first part, half part of the book, reconsidering the privileged powers of banks, jointly written with Ansel Renner. The book is going to be published next month. However, the basic ideas and tools in this book are derived from scattered materials already contained in the book published 3 years ago, this book. It took additional 3 years of research into issues of sovereign money, wealth, and real capital to elaborate these ideas and tools into the present format of the book. It is now high time, in our view, that we open a discussion on the private privileged powers currently granted to commercial banks and work towards regaining sovereign money system so that the citizens of every nation around the world can honestly strive towards a more equitable and sustainable society. Today, I'm going to present a short summary of Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 5. What is money? I am going to follow Hoover's ideas about money. Actually, this is active money. Coins, banknotes, and current account at the central bank. And bank money, which include demand deposit and e-cash in mobile sub-account of bank money. This bank money is used primarily as a cashless payment, a way of economic exchange carried out without the use of coins or banknotes. In fact, bank money is created by commercial banks, taking advantage of the client money rule exception. Currently, for example, in the United States and Eurozone, more than 90% of the active domestic money supply is bank money. Here, active mean that money in saving account or hoarded money is excluded. As you know, items 1, 2, 3 are collectively called the monetary base. But this monetary base is tiny amount compared with bank money. And The term I call general liquidity referred to money defined here and money substitute, a category comprising all forms of financial asset, including time deposit, bonds, and equities. First of all, we look at why money exists. As you know, barter requires a perfect double coincidence of ones, right? But humans are not so stupid. So to overcome such inconveniences about barter, the monetary systems, even its primitive form, began to emerge already in ancient Babylonian times, represented by devices such as Shubai tablet at that time. Also, tally stick, this is used in the later for recording credit and debt relations. So, starting from Babylonian times, we already get some money already in terms of credit and debt relations. However, MacLeod, this is a very maybe unknown to conventional economists. MacLeod gave us the answer to the question, why does money exist? He answered in his book, this is a well-known book, The Theory and Practice of Banking. Money represents debt which are due to persons who have done something service to others, but have not received such equivalent service in return. It merely is a right to demand these equivalent services when they please. And its special function is to measure, record, and preserve the future use such rights. If all the services exchanged in society exactly balanced, there'd be no need for money. And we know that banks as money issuers can play a dominant role creating debt, in particularly as cashless payment means. And in fact, MacLeod stated correctly, these two expressions are very interesting to, at least for me. Banks are nothing but debt shops, and the Royal Exchange is the great debt market of Europe. If it were asked what discovery has most deeply affected the pecuniary fortunes of the human race, it might probably said with truth, the discovery that the debt is a saleable commodity. Of course, you can see here the pecuniary fortune not for the human race, but for the debt creators. And in conjunction with MacLeod's statement, it must be emphasized that the same views are expressed by Jeffrey Mark, the author of the Modern Idolatry, being an analysis of usury and pathology of debt, and also Wilson. His book title is Promise to Pay. So essentially, money represents debt owed to individuals who have provided service to others without receiving equivalent service in return. As Wilson correctly indicated in his book title, money is a promise to pay, ultimately in terms of goods and services. As ecological economists, we know economic production of goods and service involves an entropy deficit. This is a famous word by Joseph Clayton. In biophysical terms, since certain quantity of exhaustive resources is irrevocably lost, and furthermore, all contemporary economic processes, not only production, but also distribution, consumption, and waste disposal, also diminish the exhaustible energy and mineral resources. And furthermore, real capital created by economic processes like basic infrastructure also inevitably qualitatively deteriorate over time at a rate commensurate with its stock size and scale. So matter really matters, as Joseph Clayton correctly stated long ago. This decay engenders additional irreversible biophysical debt through its implication of the necessity for maintenance and renewal processes. So there must be a subtle compatibility between stock of money, because after all, money is exchanged for goods and service, and pace of goods and service productions. This is exactly Sodi's statement. There must be a compatibility between virtual wealth creation, that is money creation process, and biophysical wealth, perishable or durable production. However, we already know, judging from the present status of financial asset expansions, achieving such compatibility is really difficult because of two unnatural powers given to the bankers. Stock of money naturally tend to expand disproportionately, followed by additional increase in money substitute defined at the beginning. What are the two unnatural powers referring to? The banking sector collectively create bank money, in fact, even out of nothing, under the mutual acceptance of such deposit, effectively using reserve system of the central bank. Therefore, banking sector create money, meaning that defying the first law of thermodynamics. On the other hand, there is no any authorized constitutional provisions allowing banks creating money. So modern commercial banks collectively create and extinguish money out of nothing. This is the first unnatural power. What is the second unnatural power? Money grows. Money is only one item that can separate functional component completely from structural component of money itself under current institutional arrangement, therefore defying the second law of thermodynamics as well. However, I say a remarkable peculiarity of money derived from the fact that functional decay of money can avoid independently of its structural decay. In terms of structure, it is intuitively the case that tangible currencies, such as banknotes and coins, cannot escape the entropy law, cannot escape the qualitative decay. Once structural decay does occur, however, the decayed structural constituent of tangible currency is usually replaced thanks to modern legal arrangement. You can see the section 100.5 of the Code of Federal Regulation of the United States. This article stipulates lawfully held mutilated paper currency of the United States may be redeemed at face value, face amount, if sufficient remnant of any relevant security feature and clearly more than one half of the original note remains. We know for all physical entities except money, the structural and functional elements are inseparable. As the structural constituent decays, its corresponding functional component also decays. Once the structure of a physical entity decays beyond a certain threshold, entity ceases to fulfill the specific purpose, function for which it was initially intended. So money interest finds its origin, not the level of interest, the origin in the unnatural perpetuation of the functional component of money, which is absent in the real goods we have, for which money is finally, ultimately to be exchangeable. You can see here these two represent gap in function here between goods and money as money. So goods, of course, because of decay, material decay, function itself would be decay. On the other hand, money as money, function must be intact. So you can make a rotation counterclockwise, like from here to here, you can get the difference between, in terms of functional decay, between money and goods. So this gap represents the origin of money interest in terms of function. So right-hand side picture shows qualitative gap in structures. As I told you already, money can be replaced. So quality getting worse, then replacement. Then you see new money get deteriorate. And similar way with the left-hand picture, we can make a rotation toward counterclockwise, you can see the similar difference. This is the origin of money interest in terms of gap in structures, goods and money as material object, not money as money. And you might say something against my argument here, because idea a cashless economy allegedly embodies imaginary that money is pure information. But digital currency stored on magnetic tapes, disk, and solid state drives transmitted on fiber optic, twisted pair, and coaxial cable, or what you have, cannot escape the entropy law. Replacement of structural constituent of electronic money occurs much more frequently than you might expect, in that catastrophic storage failure is a limited form of structural replacement of digital currency. All electric storage and transmission of financial data relies heavily on checksums in order to verify data integrity, to detect bit errors, and either correct those errors or request that data is retransmitted, recopied, and replaced. And invalid checksum signals the embedding technology to structurally replace a token of digital currency. So pure information is a nonsense, in a sense, in a biophysical sense. And we say banks can create money, right? Suppose one unit of money is created. The next question to be asked is, how much interest accrued on 1 unit of money, principal, so to speak? So you can see here, this is the present value of all interest payment on 1 unit of money. And it is elementary to prove this. This value is 1. Importantly, independently of any form of interest function, as long as interest remains positive. So, banking sector collectively create 1 unit of money, and present value terms of all interest payment, additional 1 unit is created. This relation I have MacLeod-Soddy-Array relation, which is very important, giving form to these great scholars. And in fact, not biophysical viewpoint, but from ethical viewpoint, Aristotle stigmatized interest payment in his politics. Here, interest, which means the birth of money from money, is applied to the breeding of money because the offspring resemble the parents. That is why of all modes of getting wealth, this is the most unnatural. So money, of course, can defy the first law and the second law of thermodynamics. So based on the material I presented already, this Buddhist would like to make a proposal about sovereign money, eliminating two unnatural and privileged powers of the private banking sector, showing biophysical rationale. We already know money or any form of money substitute, including financial asset, collectively called the general liquidity, a promise to pay, ultimately in terms of goods and service. An owner of the general liquidity is entitled to obtain goods and service on demand. Therefore, of course, any individual always regards money and money substitute as a form of economic affluence. On the other hand, in biophysical viewpoints, all phases in the present economic process of production, distribution, consumption, and disposal cause entropic deficit. Furthermore, as I already stated, real capital, which I call the exosomatic population produced by those economic processes, such as basic infrastructure, qualitatively decay over time at a rate in tune with its size. This decay induces further irrevocable biophysical debt through its implication of the need for maintenance and renewable processes. So money must be regarded communally or collectively as a biophysical debt. Therefore, money can be understood both as a form of wealth from an individual perspective and as a source of biophysical debt from a communal perspective. I propose to term the essence of money in view of sustainability as dual nature of money. Two unnatural powers of money are presently given to the private banking sector. On the other hand, if people really appreciate the biophysical meaning of dual nature of money, my proposal to eliminate those privileges by way of recovering sovereign money system might be accepted. And I also propose such important change should be accompanied by complete elimination of the IMF and the World Bank as well. So here, what is happening in this financially oriented society? There is a confusion between real wealth and debt. Consider the following example. Japan has been issuing a series of national bonds to compensate for continuous national budget deficit, largely attributed to an aging population and slow GDP growth. Figure 1 here shows this is a total amount more than 8 trillion US dollar equivalent. So holders of Japanese government bond, right, And as maybe you can see here, due to qualitative easing policy, not only Japan, but other countries as well. You see, Bank of Japan is now, the year 2022, get more government bonds than banks. Bank of Japan purchased a lot of bonds from the banks starting 2013. And not only the Japanese people, but anyone on this planet, I suppose, naturally and indeed correctly regard Japanese national bonds and T-bills, treasury bills, as debt, right? So all these liabilities essentially negatively signed debts. But on the other hand, holders of these debts listed as positively signed asset on the balance sheet of those holders. As shown in figure 1, 98% of debt holders are money management agents. Only 1% of the debt is held by the Japanese public. You can see here the source of such financial asset is primarily the banking sector and secondary capital market, where the original bank money in the form of demand deposit is transformed into various forms of financial asset without much being erased into nothing. In this scenario, banks enjoy the ability to issue additional money by providing demand deposit to the holders of Japanese government, for example, bonds and T-bills, which can serve as collateral for the bond holders. This mechanism allows debt to expand continuously without end. So we have witnessed confusion between real wealth and debt. A well-known movie director Akira Kurosawa once stated that in the mad world, only the mad are sane. So Kurosawa, this insight forces us to look at ourselves as embedded in society and to reconsider our own socio-economic framework, particularly the present monetary system in which the unnatural and privileged powers are given to the private banking sector, ultimately undermining biophysical base and equity. Are we mad or sane? That's all for my presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kozo. We'll see if there's any questions or comments before I'll ask a couple myself.
I talk too much, maybe.
No, it was perfect. 30 minutes.
35, more than 35 minutes. So I'm sorry.
No, it was perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions? Jesus,
very radical views.
Yeah, because I mean, I knew the text, I read the text, but I enjoyed the presentation very much, and yeah, very radical views. So my question is, and I think you mentioned in the book, no, that probably one of the most radical environmental measures could be to address this money issue, no, and recovering the sovereign money system. So, but the question is, which would be the implications to economic growth and therefore to environmental impact of recovering the sovereign money system?
You see, currently,
Ecological Economics. I'm
we
sorry.
gave right to issue money to the banking sector without any authorization, right? But in my view, any form of money issuance right distribution, money is always a debt. So I know certain people suggesting to regain sovereign money, they misunderstand completely this issue. All the form of money is a debt, no matter what. So, for example, modern monetary theorists, right? They say you can put money, you can create, any country can create to compensate the budget deficit. That's okay. But this is a big mistake. Even if we give the right of issuing money to the government or some form of democratically organized system, it is always in trouble if we expand too much money. Many people misunderstand money is not a debt. If sovereign money system is established, but all forms of money is a debt. So this is exactly the idea of SODI. So money should be used only for exchanging goods and service. So there must be a compatibility between the real production of goods and service and virtual wealth. So this virtual wealth should be used only for exchange goods and service. But unfortunately, nowadays, you see, many financial assets which are defying these two natural laws tend to expand disproportionately to the size of production, goods and service. This is very dangerous situation we are facing. So money really matters for biophysical sustainability. This is a basic message from our book. So money is very dangerous. But even people concerned with biophysical base of economy, those subtle things is not realized. So maybe even if sovereign money system is established, people involved or entitled, mistakenly entitled to issue money, tend to issue more money because you can see issuing money given production level, more money, if you issue more money, sort of inflation, not only goods and services, but financial bubble, right? So that is a tax on other people. And it is so very strange to me, you see, starting after the Lehman Brothers collapse, all the central banks, not only, actually, this was started by the Federal Reserve. All the target they say is 2% increase in price level, which actually Japanese Bank of Japan is trying to do 2%. Europe as well. You can see I don't. Okay, I cannot find the very interesting book about Federal Reserve, history of Federal Reserve, recent kind of a policy implication Federal Reserve. So 2% is 2% tax on the people, very poor people, because they have to pay more, right? Ceteris paribus. So why those monetary authorities are trying to put always inflations? Because particularly nowadays, you see, because of high inflation rate, right? Not only United States, but also in Europe, people involved in money lending and borrowing get big fortune, right? Because of high inflation rate. Only Japan, Bank of Japan is still doing quantitative easing policy, but interest difference between other countries is getting higher, bigger and bigger. Japanese yen is dramatically depreciated. And now our country is in deep trouble as well. My explanation is very poor, but I don't know how to say. And inflation is not a good idea, but because money issuers can get additional goods and service after all. This is a tax. Poor people cannot borrow now, pay later. No, they cannot. So all people involved in money borrowing or money lending can get a fortune from this inflation policy. In the Western world,
I think Carrie has a question.
I might have a question. Yeah, I think lenders of money can make money on lending independent of whether there's inflation because they can set their own interest rates, but that's not my question. My question is, I'm not sure why there's a purpose to make a distinction or to make a claim that money doesn't follow the laws of thermodynamics, right? So by definition, every physical process is going to follow it, but money, I'm going to think of money more as information, as you implied, but I think maybe didn't agree with, at least in the modern sense, since there's no gold standard anymore. And so I can agree that inflation you have to keep track of, but I don't understand. I don't understand why to make that statement, because I don't consider money a physical process that's subject to the laws of thermodynamics. Just yeah.
And of course, you see, This is a type of struggle I have been doing with physicists. So many physicists say entropy law does not apply to material object, right?
I've never heard a physical scientist say that
Okay.
entropy doesn't apply to a physical object. But
Okay.
I've
Okay,
never heard
so-
a physical scientist claim that they can violate the second law of thermodynamics. That's my interpretation of what you just said.
Okay, this is a very subtle questions. And do you know the story about disgregation?
The derivation of this, I think I knew it better at one point, but I think I've actually disgregation. I think I've never come across this. No.
Okay. Before Claudius formulated entropy law, he tried to divide state function entropy into two parts. One is a heat content of the body, and the other is disgregation, showing the configuration of particles.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
And what he showed is, you see, this is a heat part. This is a disgregation part.
Right. Okay.
Either part cannot be at total differentials. That means actually entropy refers not only energy, but also matter as well.
Okay. Yep.
And in fact, Frank also suggests a similar way at looking at entropy, meaning of entropy. Entropy means not only dissipation of energy, but also a dissipation of matter. Clearly, he stated. So real meaning of second law here, I'm going to read, has frequently been looked for in the dissipation of energy. This view proceeding as it does from the irreversible phenomena of conduction and radiation of heat present only one side of the questions. So material deterioration part also refers to a part of entropy, so that we cannot separate energy and matter. But physicists like to say second law implies only for energy. That is not true, at least in my view. And
They might be
very,
interpreting an arrangement of atoms in a low entropy state as the ability to still do work.
Money originally, you see, money also a material object. This is because you see the precious metals are used as money.
Right.
So
okay, I think I maybe get your point if I can try to restate it.
Money.
I think I get maybe your point.
Qualitatively, yeah, please.
Oh, I'm going to try to state something. So you're saying even if money is not a physical commodity, and we store it as a digital recording in a hard drive or something, is how much money I have in the bank. There's still an arrangement of atoms in the hard drive that are recording this state of money, and because that's an arrangement of atoms, it's subject to the laws of thermodynamics. And entropy.
Another thing I like to talk to you is, you see, money, even if money, you say money is information, money, when you we get money. Ultimately, we are supposed to exchange goods and service, right? So to produce goods and service requires exhaustive resources, right? So that even if money is the information you say, but ultimately we have to exchange. So there must be the compatibility between money stock that basically exchange for goods and service. But on the other hand, money we have now is defined first law and second law that always tend to expand. This is what's happening. Because this is the reason why the interest rate in general is very low, right? This is very natural. Once the expansion of money or money equivalent gets bigger, interest rate, spectrum of interest rate must getting lower and lower. If those things let them do. But unfortunately, central bank try to distort, trying to manipulate interest rate, right? And the worst thing happening now is if they are doing manipulation with interest, only impact they can make is exchange rate, not the prime rate or saving rate. At the end of my book, I say last November, 2 economists at Federal Reserve questioned why saving rate does not change much even after Federal Reserve raise the interest rate. But for me, they are completely wrong, misunderstand situations, because money itself is not controlled by the Central Reserve Bank, but by money creators, I mean commercial banks. But only effect they can do is to change interest rate, then causing exchange rate repercussion. This is the only thing they are doing, and pretending they can have power to control money, but which is a tiny amount they are controlling. Vast majority, more than maybe 90% is controlled by commercial banks collectively.
Right.
So I don't know what they are doing. And are they stupid? No. Maybe they want to maintain the present status as much as possible.
Well, I'll just encourage you. Yeah. So so thank you. I put some links to some papers. One is in Ecological Economics, where I made a biophysical model that has money creation by banks. So I think you'd find it consistent with what you're saying.
My English is very poor, so I'm sorry for giving a lot of confusions.
Hey, Kozo, I think what you're showing is the inverse relationship between monetary debt and biophysical debt. So along the same line, while you're concentrating more on a monetary system, I wonder if incorporating what you've developed into a different GDP measure. So some of the natural resource valuations and incorporating that into the GDP measure, how that would get a better measure, because it seems to me the connection is there. It's how would you go about it? Maybe I'm way off base, but What do you think?
You see, Professor Sorrentino want to say something. Please.
Well, I'll wait till you answer John. I'll wait till you answer John's comment.
Okay.
Did you? John, did he answer your question? Or-
I think you
Go
see,
ahead and ask your question, John. It's all right.
Okay, so I came in late and I'm sorry for that. And maybe you covered what I'm going to ask before I got in. But you mentioned eliminating the IMF and the World Bank. That is, let's say, on a global scale. And your phrase, recovering the sovereign money system, how would you do that domestically in any country?
I don't have much time, but in the chapter 8, I make a proposal step by step how to establish an initial settlement toward sovereign money. Of course, as I already mentioned, to manage monetary sovereignty in a country is very difficult. But I make a certain step-by-step procedure to get to the initial point of sovereign money system. First of all, what we have to do is elimination of client money rule. Taking advantage of client money rule nowadays, in the case of USA, or also UK as well, I suppose, current account reserve ratio is 0. In Japan, 2%. Europe, I think 2%, he says, reserve ratio, legal limit. So they are still playing a kind of a game that completely does not have any meaning. How this reserve base is working. So first of all, we have to separate the bank money from their customers' money. And we take off customers' account from bank's account. That is the first thing. Then, on the conversion day, we have to do some additional procedures, which I put in the book. But again, as I already told you, to make a management of money system is very, very difficult. Any people involved in issuing money or deleting money always try to get power over these entitlement.
I agree.
So this is completely very difficult. I have to say, but the most important point that I am trying to do within my talk, at least for me, is money is a debt. That recognition would change our mentality. Money is a debt. All forms of money. That is very dangerous thing. All forms of money So MMT people say, money, we can issue as much as money you want, your country wants. And furthermore, maybe in relation to John's questions, what is price? Economists usually talk about price only in relation to goods and service, right?
Right.
So every time increasing money, how much money is going to be spent on goods and service, but how much money is going to spend on property related things like land, and how much money may be created also for the purpose of maintaining financial asset. So 3 types of price level must be jointly considered. This is what I propose also in the book. So economists usually talk about price, consumer index or producer index, something like that. But usually they do not say anything about other 2 items. For example, after the introduction by the Bank of Japan's quantitative easing policy, you can see price level, Japan did not change. Less than 1%. Target is 2% every year. 10 years, only 1% increase. But you can look into stock market. Skyrocketing. So Japan, Nikkei index quadrupled 4 times as much as the level in 2013. So this is a bubble, but they don't say anything about this bubble. They are happy. And I suppose also other capital market as well. So we should reconsider the meaning of price. 3 items, broadly categorized: goods and service, land-related property things, and financial market in general. So how much percent of money is going to pour into these 3 items, price index, so to speak, can be clearly analyzed. But no economist, as far as I know, they don't say anything about these aspects as well. I'm a completely heterodox economist, so I'm a super heterodox. I started this stupid sort of nonsense thing shortly after the Lehman Brothers shock. In fact, this Jesus Ramos Martin and Mario Giampietro suggested me to do something about money shortly after the Lehman Brothers collapse. But to be honest, all of you here, I failed in macroeconomics preliminary examination so that I couldn't get a PhD from Vanderbilt University. So I was so much reluctant to do it, to study money. But in Japan, we say accompanying people, riding horse. So the year 2013, I started studying these money issues. Then I found a very important thing, at least to me. The one thing economists say much about capital interest, right? You see, Ben Babel, right? But never ever touched on why money interest comes. Of course, I know time preference theory does exist, but no foundations that is robust I couldn't find. Then I start thinking about the origin of money interest, which I finally solved. This is the only discovery I made in my research life, 30 years research life. So I saw this is my ball paint. This is almost gone. The money is the only item I told you separate functional component and structural component. No other goods, human-made or natural, cannot do it. Then I try to do something about why degradation of matter does matter for explaining the origin of money interest. Of course, physics doesn't like. I sent my first paper to Ecological Economics, rejected. Then, jointly with Ansel Renner, I submitted to Biophysical Economics. Editor is Charlie Ho. Again, rejected. So I asked Herman Daly if he's interested in joining joint work. He did it. And finally, we sent again back to Ecological Economics, jointly with Herman. That was rejected without being sent to review. And finally, I found a niche to get it published 2 years ago. It was published, finally. Then I thought it better to do a book. So jointly with Ansel, it took 2 or 3 years to finish up this book. So I have been struggling even within ecological economics or biophysical economics. They don't like my work at all.
Are there any other questions? All right, so I would encourage you to hunt out Kozo and Ansel's book. Like Jesus, I've read it. It's very good. It's very interesting.
No, actually, John write a forward to the book. I have to say. Thank you.
And despite what Kozo says, it's not a stupid idea. It's a very smart idea, I think. And he's on to something. And I would encourage you to get his book when it's out.
No, this is stupidly expensive. So I'm afraid nobody would buy.
Well, you can borrow it in the library then. So
Yes, that is the one solution.
And while we have everybody still online, I'll leave this up. Our next presentations for the U.S. Society will be October 27th by Mario Giampietro. Then on November 10th, we'll have Tommaso Luzzati from the University of Pisa. And in December, we're starting a new initiative, a book club, which will be online. That'll be our first effort at that. That will be December 12th. There'll be more information. And, we'll have many more presentations as we go forward. And hopefully you'll be able to attend. So with that, thank you very much, Kozo. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, and we'll be emailing some stuff back and forth. And thank you all for attending, and thank you again, Kozo.
Thank you very much for patience. You showed me all of the audience here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, Kozo.
Ciao.